Hello, everyone. It is important to know that children with disabilities and their families creating a supportive environment where kids can grow and parents can engage in their everyday lives and developments. This crucial initiative in Vancouver, BC helps build a stronger, more inclusive community. We have invited Mandy Young, who's going to share her life journey. Hello, Mandy, and welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me, Sherry.
Our focus today is on children with disabilities and their families. But before I start, can you please introduce yourself and share with us what you are currently focused on your work and activities?
Sure. So I'm Mandy Young. I am the president of the BC Prader-Willi Association. The work that I do there is supporting families with this rare disease, and I am currently supporting my family as well. I have two kids. My eldest is who brings me into this world, and they are 13 years old, and then my youngest is 12.
I see. Now, you said your oldest brings you into this world. Why is that?
My oldest was born with Prader-Willi syndrome. We found out his diagnosis when he was 7 weeks old. Just before his first fifth birthday as well, he was diagnosed with autism. So he has two diagnoses that we navigate through this complex journey.
I see. Now, Mandy, can you share your journey as a parent of a child with disability and how it has shaped your involvement in supporting other parents?
Sure. So Hudson was born with a rare disease. I had never experienced any disability within our family to this degree. And it was important for me to understand what this journey would be like with a child with a disability as significant as his,
Mhm,
and that it was important for me to connect to other families so
mhm.
that I could see that they were living living lives, living happy lives. What I've read about the diagnosis didn't sound good at all. It was very bleak, and it was so important to me to be able to connect with other parents. So that's what I did. I reached out to other parents who had children with Prader-Willi syndrome, and connected to our association, and was roped into being a vice president, and then that led me to being the president of our association. And so when new families like myself 13 years ago are born with a child with Prader-Willi syndrome, they can connect to our association, and we can help support them and guide them through those first few months of questions and of the fears and hopes for the future. We can help guide them through that, as well as help them navigate the complex medical
Yeah.
system that they're now going to have to navigate themselves
Yeah.
through.
Now, did you have to take any courses or for this specific things that you do, or you just did your own research and working with other parents and find out exactly what you guys have to do and what sources you have to take?
Yep, it was a little bit of trial and error. I have no training to be a parent of a child with a disability. Um, I make lots of mistakes,
Mm.
and I lean on my family and my husband to help navigate through this journey. I have a wonderful medical team. It wasn't always that way.
Mhm.
In some of those early years, we had medical professionals that um, weren't seeing eye to eye to me, and I didn't know that I had choices.
Mhm.
I didn't know that I had choices to find a new doctor, to find people that supported our family's goals and the future of my kiddo. And so
Yeah.
that's what I like to tell new parents. They don't have to wait as long as I did. It took till my kiddo was about 2.5 or 3 years old
Mhm.
before I realized that I had some choices and that I could find new health care professionals to support our family. So that's the message, one of the important messages I
Yes.
tell new families. Um, if it doesn't feel right, you can change.
Exactly. And it is very challenging. Now, you talked about challenges. What challenges have you encountered in Vancouver to help your child live a full and inclusive life?
Um, well, that's tricky. There's been lots of bumps along the way. Um, Finding the right therapies to try. It's often trial and error.
Hmm.
That doesn't always feel so good. You want it to work the best right from the start. And that, unfortunately, with a rare disease, which for Prader-Willi, it is 1 in 15,000 babies born with this rare condition. So it's very rare, and not a lot of professionals know very much about it. And
Hmm.
so often I'm having to educate them about what we face on a daily
The
basis. And
symptoms
so,
that they're getting.
yeah, all
Hmm.
those pieces that they don't know, and that's okay because it is rare. And I'm a mom. I'm a mama bear, and I want to.
I can see that in you.
I'm often doing lots of research
I
and
bet you do,
consulting
yeah.
with other families, and I often know quite a bit. And
Yeah.
so, because I'm invested in my kiddo's future
Hmm.
and
Well,
wanting
that's
that to
because it's
be the
important to
best
you.
life.
The life of your children is important to you. So you want them to have a better life and to achieve better in their lives. Now, how
Yeah,
would you
absolutely.
describe access to services like therapy and a special education for children with additional support needs in your community because I know that you guys are in North Vancouver community, and how do you explain that?
It's difficult. I'll share a short story.
Hmm.
We were trying to find a occupational therapist for my kiddo a few years back, and there's a list. It's called the RASP list, and that is registered therapists that I can access that will receive autism funding directly, and so they are been certified to be able to do support for folks that have kiddos with autism. And so I went to this list. I contacted over 30 occupational therapists.
Mm.
Um, Only three of them responded.
Oh.
And out of those three, two of them had wait lists that were so long that it wasn't even worth putting our name on them. And one of them was the one we chose. And unfortunately, they were so new in the field that their skills just weren't significant enough for our needs. And then
Mhm.
so we were back to the drawing board of looking and finding and calling and waiting to see if we could find one that would fit for our family.
Yeah, you
We,
talk.
we
Yeah.
have been successful finally finding one, and we've been working with that person for a few years now, which
Oh,
is
I
really
see.
wonderful.
That's great. Now you talked about funding. Is that government funding that government funds you
Yeah,
guys?
so in BC, when you receive a diagnosis of autism um, for the ages 0 to 6.
Hmm.
There is funding that supports your family um, to access any type of therapy on their list of therapists that you can use,
Hmm.
and you can choose who you'd like. You pay them through the portal, and it works fairly well. That funding for 0 to 6 is $22,000 a year.
Oh,
And once a child hits school age, so 5, 6, and they're into the school system, then the majority of that funding gets transferred over into the school system, and families receive a much lower amount, which is $6,000 a year, and
hmm.
they can use that towards the funding, the
And why
therapist
is
that
that? Why a school gets more than the family?
So once they hit school age, then the idea is that those therapies will then be done within the school system. But unfortunately, our school system is incredibly underfunded, and those therapies aren't being conducted in the school setting.
I see. Now, what role do community support networks plays in helping parents navigate the experience of raising a child with autism or disability?
Yeah, well, there's a number of community resources. Specifically in North Vancouver, there's North Shore Family Services, and families can access those resources that they have.
Hmm.
I always say connect with your community. So the BC Prader-Willi Association is a provincial organization, but we can help families at all ages and stages, and we can support them to point them in the right direction, to guide them to different therapists that we know that are more informed than others. And so those community resources are the ones that really help families navigate the day to day. The clinical team that supports families are more for those acute situations that come up, like um, ex- extreme emergencies and the bigger picture. But the
Hmm.
day to day is really community organizations. They help families navigate to resources,
I see.
to how to navigate at school, possibly through the ministries of children and families development. So, all of those different things that families might need to access.
So you're talking about particularly the resources that the family can get is more like organization in Lower Mainland, specifically right now in your area, North Vancouver or Vancouver. There's a lot of resources and organizations that family can get help. Is there any link that we can provide to our families that they're watching this program today?
Yeah, we can provide our association's link there, as well as there are some family organizations like Family Support Institute of BC.
Mm-hmm.
There's also Family Smart is another organization that will support families through mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of different organizations that uh, we can support,
You can
or
support.
I can share with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So now that in what ways have you assist parents in navigating the emotional and mental demands of caring for a child with autism or disabilities?
Yeah, that's a hard one because
Mm-hmm.
families go through different stages of readiness to accept this new future for their loved ones. I know myself when I was pregnant with my first, I had a whole plan of what their life was before they were even born. I had pictured the wedding day and all
Oh,
those things that you really hope
yeah.
and wish for your kids to have, friends, like all those basic needs that we are as people and humans really need to have. And so when I received the diagnosis, those things, um, they changed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that some of them won't come true, and there are different stages of life that make it harder for you to accept.
Yeah.
Some of those times were the first birthday, starting kindergarten. That's another big stage
Yeah.
where things don't aren't exactly the same for my child as they would be for a typical child.
Mm.
And the stage that we just finished going through is graduating grade 7 and moving into high school. I had lots of hopes for elementary school, and many of those didn't come true. But now we're on our next journey of high school, and I have new hopes for my kiddo, and hopefully some of those will come true. So, helping families just go through those emotional feelings,
Mm-hmm.
having somebody else that really understands it has been so important for my journey, and I feel it's important for families that have reached out to me as well.
Especially when families dealing with someone who's been through this and emotionally and mentally, and they can get better support than the person who hasn't been involved with the situation like that. Mandy, can you share a little bit of symptoms that the families can see and look for the new families I'm talking about, that they have no idea that their kids might be diagnosed by autism or any kind of disabilities. Can you talk about a little bit about the symptoms that they have to watch?
Sure. But because Prader-Willi is a disability that you are diagnosed with very close to birth, I'll speak to autism. And to be perfectly honest, I had a friend say to me, Mandy, you might think of getting an autism diagnosis for your kiddo. And at that time, I was not ready to hear that information. And I said, no, oh, no, not my child. Nope, not autism. No way. I'm not, I'm not going down that road. And
You were in denial at that time, at
I
that
was
point. Yeah.
absolutely in denial, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want another thing, to be perfectly honest. My
Hmm.
child already had one disability. I didn't want them to have another one. And it was, there were some signs, absolutely. Delays in those milestones that kiddos reach. Um, there were things in my gut that I felt, my instincts, my mother instincts, were kind of trying to push away. Um, and I had a wonderful therapist that had been working with us since birth,
Oh, I see.
and she gently guided me towards our autism diagnosis. And I had deep trust in this woman, and she gently approached the subject with me. And so I think um, I've I've thought about this question a lot and wanted to help families get to that diagnose quicker. Right, we didn't get to it until Hudson was almost 5 years
Hmm.
old, so we had very little time to get those early year intervention therapies in. And unfortunately, I think with this is people are only ready when they're ready.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as it is, best intentions that I am or other people are, if a person and a family's not ready to receive the information, it it often is headed with no, thank you, nope,
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
So
parents, they do not want to believe, or they're in denial because they think nothing's wrong with my kid.
yeah.
There's absolutely nothing is wrong with my kid, and they do not want to accept the truth. Now, when was it that you made that decision that it's time for me to get up and help other parents in the situation that they are in?
So it I joined our BC Prader-Willi Association when my kiddo was 3 months old. I wanted to get involved. I really wanted to be connected with other parents, to be truthful, and because I didn't want to feel alone. I wanted other parents that had children older than me, or older than my kiddo, to guide me to the best care for my kiddo, so that I would give my kid the best chance ever that they could have. And so that has just led me to want to give back. So in those first early years, I was just attached to the organization because I didn't want to be alone. But
Mhm.
as the years have progressed, I just really want families to feel how I felt in those early days, and supported
Mhm.
and cared for and not alone.
Yes.
The isolation is what is really, really difficult for families and parents.
Mhm.
That deep isolation that you don't want to tell people how difficult it is, because you don't want people to feel sorry for you,
Yeah.
and you
You don't
just
want that
want,
sympathy that people give. Exactly.
yeah, you want honesty, but
Mhm.
you need that in, not.
Yes, I totally agree. Now, based on your experience, Mandy, what a step can schools and teachers take to better support children with autism or disabilities?
Um, that's a tricky question. We went through elementary school, and some years we had great teachers, and some years we didn't. And the good thing about school is every year you get a new teacher, and it's a fresh start.
Hmm.
So the years that we didn't have the greatest teachers, we just chalk that as a not a great year. The schools are trying their very best. Classrooms are very complex environments, and there's a lot of kids that have different diagnoses, some kids that don't have any diagnoses, and the funding model within the education system is tricky. It's underfunded again, um, and some students get left out. And the students that are quiet and might sit quietly in the corner, they often get the least amount of support, and
Hmm.
often need a lot of support. So
Now, in North,
what I say to parents is try to speak up, try to advocate
mhm,
as much as you can. Bring a support person with you. I'm a strong advocate for other people, but when I go into school meetings by myself, I always take a support person, because I am highly emotional and sensitive to my child's needs, and I don't always think as clearly as I should. And it is so wonderful to have a person there that is able to support me, to take notes for me, to ask questions that I forget to ask, and to help debrief after the meetings. That I say that's one of the most important things that I've learned, is always bringing somebody, and that can be a friend, it could be another family member, it could be a neighbor. It's whoever you trust to come and
help you. Yeah.
help you. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Now, in the schools, do they have a system, especially like in your area, North Vancouver community and North Vancouver schools? Does the kids sit with the same kids and the same classrooms, or they have a specific classrooms that they've been taught differently?
In the public school system, no, all students are in the classroom together.
Hmm.
There are alternate schools to go to. There are homeschool options as well. And sometimes those are the right way to go.
Mhm.
For our family, I really believe in the public school system. I believe that my child is going to have to live in society, right?
Yes,
And if he is in another classroom away from everybody else, people won't be able to see who he is as a person.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
and he wants to have a job. He
Mhm.
wants friends, and often you can't do that if you're being segregated in another area.
Or
So
being
for us,
isolated in different area. Now, especially nowadays, like you want your child to associate with others, like to socializing with others, and to learn how to socialize with others. So it is very important to sit in the same classroom with other kids. I totally agree with that. Now,
yeah.
how do you see the landscapes of autism services in North Vancouver or Vancouver, BC, evolving in the coming year? And are there any improvements that you hope to see?
So the services for through the Ministry of Children and Families, and specifically children and youth with special needs. That is the branch of the Ministry of Children and Family that supports children um, with autism. It's been going through a review for the last number of years. I think we're at 3 years now. Um, there was a call to action that services weren't across the board for all children. So,
Mhm.
for example, my kiddo, born with Prader-Willi syndrome, does not get funding
I
outside of
see.
0 to 5 years old. Once he turned 5 years old, he would get no supports. And so that was part of the reason we went down the route to get an autism diagnosis.
Hmm.
He has autism, but as I mentioned, I was in denial and I didn't want to add another disability to my
Yes.
child's disability. And so um, I realized that at age 5, he wouldn't have any supports. So
Mhm.
getting that diagnosis has then now been able to support him um, past age 5 to age 18. And then once he's an adult, he'll also have supports in the adult system. And so the review that's happening in our province um, went through a review, and families fought back and didn't like the way things were going. And now we're in a second review. And families are being consulted again as to how they'd like to see supports for their loved ones. And hopefully, some positive changes will come in the next year or so, maybe in our new set of government that will be coming into power next.
Yeah. Now, as a parent, what do you advise, would you offer to parents who are just beginning to navigate autism support and advocacy?
Mhm. I say, and it's a trap that I got into at the beginning. I picked a type of therapy and I said, this is what we're going to do forever,
Hmm.
thinking that it was the very best, and realized after a few years that it wasn't the best at that moment anymore.
Hmm.
Right. So what I often say is, you can make a decision, but you can always change your decisions. And I
Yeah.
think that goes for the type of therapy you do, the type of school you choose for your children. You can pick a type and you can change. It's not one decision and that's it. You get
One
you get
solution is not only
choice.
one solutions. There's always different solutions that they can try. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, um, but it's driven by a lot of fear, right?
Hmm.
As a parent, you want to do the very best, and you don't want to make any mistakes along the way, right?
Hmm.
But unfortunately, with any child, disability or not, as parents, unfortunately, we make mistakes with our kids.
Exactly. Oh,
And
God
so
forbid. And I made so many mistakes with my daughter.
I know, right? And so we need to be a little bit kind on ourselves, right? And
Mhm.
and realize that our children with disabilities, they're not void of those general parental mistakes that we will make.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
just sometimes feels a little bit more heavy for parents when they make a mistake on a with a child that already has
Mhm.
challenges, right?
Well, thank you so much, Mandy, for all your insights and sharing your journey with us. Now, is there anything else you want to add before we say goodbye to our viewers?
I think one of the hardest things is to reach out. It is really difficult to reach out. There's always a fear that you won't be received with love and kindness. And so that's my biggest advice is to reach out, try to find a place that feels safe for you to land, and that that it it can feel uncomfortable at the beginning to ask for help.
Yes. And it's always good to ask for help. It's never, you know, it never hurts you when you say, I need help. It actually will help you to get better services and access and find a better resources for your own child to have a better life. And I thank you for your support. This is very important to us because we do want to give the awareness to our families, to the families that they are new with this, and that there is support. They can always get support and find the resources, especially people who lives in North Vancouver. There is many Persians that they live in North Van and West Vancouver that they do not know where they can find these kind of resources for their families and their child or children with disabilities. Now, I do thank you for joining us today and thank you for giving us and sharing your journey and giving us all this information. That was very important. Again, thank you for coming.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this, so thank you very much.
And please, your comments and your thoughts are very important to us. So please email us at skyrisemediasociety@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. Until next time and next program.